up, guys? Bench Buddies are back with our college football Week 10 preview and picks. As always, I have Ty joining me. And before we get into it, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Get us to 200 subscribers. We'll be doing that autograph item giveaway or memorabilia. And we're going to look at last week's games. And Ty, you edged me here. 9-6 record, wasn't your best record. And I had 8-7, one of my better records to say the least. But out of all of these games, which one stood out to you the most?
I'd say there's a couple. I'm going to start with Kansas State. I know it wasn't like a huge game, but the fact that they won 48-0 is just crazy. I don't know what happened. I was at the Michigan game, but I just see that score and I have no idea what's going on. So kind of a crazy blowout there that no one really expected. And then I'm very impressed with Tennessee, obviously, just blowing the doors off Kentucky.
Yeah, I have to go with kind of a different direction there. I'm going to go with Ohio State. I think that shows more about this team's resilience and how they can really pull away late. And that's exactly what they did on the road in Penn State's, biggest home game of the year and biggest game of the year as well. And then you got to go all the way to the end there and look at UNC. Yes, a one-loss team with Drake May at the helm could possibly be contending for a late bid to the college football playoff if they can really go in and get the win against Clemson potentially in the championship. But we'll talk about tonight's game, which is going on right now. We're both going with Coastal Carolina, 7-1 at home. This is a big game for the Sun Belt. And I like the Chanticleers at home just because of that teal field.
Yeah, I mean, I love the field, and I think I think they're a little overhyped from that A&M win, which was a huge fluke. Also, A&M's just really bad. So I think they're not quite as good as people think.
And then moving to tomorrow night, we got Oregon State and Washington, a battle in the Pac-12, a late matchup as usual. And I think this game is going to decide the Pac-12 standings for probably the rest of the year. There's 4 games this week left. And I'm going to go with Washington. And I just think that this program, they had a slight stumble. We were high on them early. And here they are still sitting at 6-2 and win this week against the ranked Oregon State team could jump them into the rankings as well.
Yeah, these are two really similar teams that have performed way above expectations. But I'm going with Michael Penix here for Washington. He's the more proven quarterback, and I think they'll get it done here on their home field.
And then moving over to the Saturday slate, we're going to start it off with a Big 12 battle. Fox Big Noon kickoff is going to be at this one, and it's Texas Tech going on the road to face TCU. And I'm kind of surprised on that spread, the 8.5. I definitely will be thinking about taking that spread. I just think this TCU team is still not getting enough credit that they deserve. They're 8-0 in the Big 12. And at this point, if you are 6-2 or better in the Big 12, you're a good team just because of how crazy this division has been. And I just love the Horned Frogs here. They keep proving people wrong, and I got to go with them.
Yeah, I'm also a little surprised at that spread. Everyone seems to want to put TCU on upset alert this week, but Texas Tech's just not a very good team. I mean, they just haven't really done anything noteworthy to this point where TCU should be worried. So I think they should cover that spread easily, and they should get to 9-0, and they should be ranked ahead of Alabama.
And then we have an SEC game of the battle of should-have-beens. We got Florida and Texas A&M. You were talking about them earlier, but you're still going to pick them. And I'm going with Florida on the road. I think if you're going to look at just the quarterback battle here, Anthony Richardson versus who knows, Zach Calzada or Max Johnson or whoever they're going to throw out there, I got to go with Anthony Richardson and his Gators. They played Tennessee tough to the wire, essentially. And I think people forget about that game, a few weeks ago. And if they can play like that against, the top team in the country right now, I got to go with the Gators.
Yeah, I'm calling this the fraud bowl right here. Both of these teams were at one point ranked in the top 20, maybe even 15, and they just have had terrible seasons. I guess I'm leaning Texas A&M. First of all, they're at home, and I think that defense is just going to swarm Richardson. But, if A&M loses this game, there's going to be a lot of people asking what Jimbo's buyout is. So I think with all that pressure, they'll finally get a win.
And then a game in the Big Ten that definitely won't be talked about enough this week, unless you're a diehard Big Ten fan. You got Maryland sitting at 6-2, Wisconsin 4-4, and the real records here is Maryland and their Big Ten record. I think they only have one loss in conference, if I believe, or is it 2?
I believe it's 2.
Is it 2? Okay. Well,
It is.
if it is 2, we'll say they need to win this game to stay alive in the hunt, but it's not looking too good. They got Tua's brother, and it hit him at quarterback versus whoever Wisconsin has at quarterback. It's just not even comparable. So that's why I got to go with Maryland here on the road.
Yeah, I just think Wisconsin's going to be able to run the ball, which is obviously what they always want to do. I think they'll be able to do that pretty well in this Maryland defense. And it is November now, so you're getting November Maryland, which is always a much different team than September Maryland. I think that trend continues this year. Wisconsin gets back on track.
Then moving over to 3 o'clock, we got Baylor in Oklahoma, and this is the Big 12 should have been as well. Baylor, they've looked lopsided and sloppy, and same with Oklahoma at times, getting skunked in the Red River rivalry. But since that, they've rebounded, performed well, played some good teams, and have won those games. And I like this game at home to get them bowl eligible.
Yeah, both of these teams have rebounded from terrible starts. This was supposed to be the Big 12 championship, according to most people. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but they have both turned things around pretty well. And I think Oklahoma, they're really righting the ship right now. I think they'll keep rolling with a win.
And then the game that everyone has been talking about all week, Tennessee going on the road to Georgia. And the Dogs are favored by 8, and I don't like that at all. Give me those Volunteers, straight up money line, and the over. I just think Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt, that connection is going to be unstoppable. And Georgia, they have looked like not the Georgia Bulldogs we saw last year at times. Close games against Missouri. Obviously, the Oregon game was a complete blowout. That's what we thought we would see each and every week from that Georgia team, but it just hasn't been that. And I know this game is at home, and it's Tennessee's first true road test this year, but it's not going to matter. The hype around Tennessee is real, and give me those Volunteers.
Yeah, to me, Georgia just seems like a team that plays up and down to its competition level. Obviously, Tennessee's #1, so you would expect to get Georgia's best effort in this game. And I think Tennessee's offense finally is going to face a little bit of adversity, and I think that'll be the difference. I think Georgia wins a close game. I think Tennessee covers, but Georgia wins.
And then you have a game in the ACC of the should have beens at some point this year. Syracuse, they are struggling mightily after their loss to Clemson. And Pitt, well, just needs Kenny Pickett back, essentially. And they've been struggling, but I like Pitt at home here just because Syracuse has just been, a complete free fall downhill.
Yeah, Pitt's going to run the ball. I mean, Notre Dame ran all over Syracuse, and Pittsburgh has one of the best running backs in the country. So I think you'll get more of the same this week, and Pittsburgh will, I think they'll get an easy win. I think they'll cover.
And then we have Oklahoma State and Kansas. And if you were going to tell me this game would have been even heading into the season, I would have called you crazy because Oklahoma State, they've suffered 2 tough losses back to back now. And Kansas, well, at one point they were 5-0 this year, and now the tables have turned completely. And I just don't know who's really going to win. A coin flip pretty much decides this one, but I'm going to go with Oklahoma State just because they've proven themselves longer than Kansas has.
Yeah, I know Spencer Sanders was injured in Oklahoma State's last game, so I'm assuming this spread means he won't be playing, but I think Oklahoma State's still going to be able to grind out a win here. I think if they can keep it, in the 20s, somewhere around there, I think that's what they're going to need to do to get this win. Because if it's a high-flying offensive game, that's what Kansas loves. But I think the defense for the Cowboys will hold up just enough, and they'll get the win.
Then we got an American battle here with UCF going on the road to Memphis. And these Central Florida Knights aren't getting enough respect out of the committee and us. And if they go on the road here, get a win, go at 7-2 in the American after beating Cincinnati last week, I think a lot of people might start favoring them as well and possibly could be the, non-Power 5 represent in the New Year's Six Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they win out, they will be that team. And I think they get a big win here. This, I think, is maybe their biggest obstacle before the American Championship. So if they can get through this one, then they're looking good, and I think they will.
Then moving over to the night games, we're going to start it off here with Texas and Kansas State. Give me Kansas State. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. Could be Martinez or could be the other guy that played last week for Martinez. They both look great. And I know Texas at times has, played to the other teams' level. Like look at the Alabama game. Ewers got hurt and they still competed till the end. But the thing that is interesting about Texas is I believe they've lost 3 games by a total of 11 points. So they are in every single game that they are playing. So don't expect this to be, Kansas State just absolutely blowing them out. But I do think they will at least cover if they don't win this game.
Yeah, I know Vegas loves Texas, but I've loved Texas for a lot of this season. I'm finally hopping off their bandwagon. I'm tired of buying into Texas and them failing to do anything. It just seems like it keeps happening. So I'm waiting for this team to prove me wrong. I'm going Kansas State here. I just think Texas, Texas lost to Oklahoma State, who then lost to Kansas State by 48. So it's very hard to pick Texas in this game, especially on the road. So I'm gonna roll with the Wildcats, and I think they'll stay hot.
And then we have another great SEC matchup this week. Alabama 7-1, LSU 6-2, and somehow, some way ranked 10th in the college football playoff. And that is strictly because of SEC bias and ratings to look better on TV. And we're not a channel to admit that stuff because we don't care. We just call it how it is. And that's
Yep.
exactly how it is. So I am going
Joke.
to go with Bama here. Shouldn't be, I want to say, a close game, but I don't think this one is going to get too far out of hand because it is on the road. And we've seen Bama struggle at neutral sites, on the road. And I don't know, they just aren't the same Bama team yet. But now that I say that, we're going to be 4 weeks into this, and somehow, some way, they're going to find themselves more than likely in a spot for the college football playoff.
Yeah, that's what they tend to do. Right when you start doubting them, they find their way in. But I do think LSU is going to cover in this game. Alabama has really struggled in true road games over the last 2 seasons. So I think that'll continue a little bit here. But, LSU is not the 10th best team in the country. They should not be ranked 10. So I don't think they'll have enough to win this game. Alabama is just a step above them. And they should be more than 4 rankings above them.
Then at 7:30, yes, you guys are looking at that right for my pick. The Notre Dame pick. I am going to go with the Fighting Irish here. The beginning of the year was rough. Everybody already wrote them off, losing 2 in a row. Marcus Freeman sucks. He's a fraud, blah, blah, blah. Well, here he is. He put himself in a position to essentially, this is your season right here. If you win this game, no one's going to remember that beginning of the season disaster. And you can go beat Clemson at home, undefeated at the time, in the college football playoff at the time. You might even be ranked if you're Notre Dame, just because, well, you got 6 wins and only 3 losses, and you just beat a college football playoff contender. So I think they're going to do that. And if they are going to do that, you see that over under at 44. They are going to have to hold Clemson in check to at least under 17. And, we've seen them play before. DJ's already played them once before because he replaced Trevor Lawrence and didn't turn out too hot for him most of the game. And I think you might get a repeat performance, but this one is going to be all defensive.
Yeah, I really wanted to pick Notre Dame because how big of a win would this be for Marcus Freeman after the way they started? I mean, this would just completely turn around the Freeman era in year one. But at the end of the day, it's Dabo Swinney against Marcus Freeman. I'm going to go with one of the best coaches in college football in this game. I just think Clemson's going to find a way to win at the end. Notre Dame, I think, is a year or two away from winning a game like this. Clemson's similar to LSU. They're not the 4th best team in the country, but they're still going to have enough to win this game.
And then, of course, we got our Wolverines going on the road to face Rutgers, lowly Rutgers. But in recent years, it has been a problem for Michigan. They have struggled a little bit to Rutgers. They haven't lost, but they have struggled at times. But I think it's different this year when you have a potential Heisman candidate running the ball. And maybe they'll let JJ unleash his arm this time. We say it every week. Maybe this week will be the week before the Ohio State game, but they don't need to. They have Blake Corum. They have a great offensive line, top 10 in the country, and that defense is performing as good or even better than I would say 90% of analysts thought it would be, and it's definitely exceeded my expectations. So with that being said, I think they're going to hold Rutgers in check this week, and it's going to be a big win for the Wolverines.
Yeah, I agree. I think Michigan's offense should have their way. They should be able to run the ball pretty well. I think JJ should have plenty of opportunities. And, that defense has just been playing on another level the last few weeks. I think that'll continue. Rutgers can't throw. I mean, you can just write that in for every season for them. They never can throw. And this year is no exception. So Michigan should shut them down for the most part. Advice for Rutgers: probably shouldn't invite 200 recruits to this game like they did to a past game against Michigan where they lost by 78. So maybe don't do that this year.
And then the last game that we have for you this week, we got Wake Forest going on the road to NC State. And this is a game that is pivotal to both these teams' seasons in the ACC. Strictly, I'm going with Wake Forest just because of Sam Hartman, and I know what he can do in games that matter and big games as well. He's on the road. A lot of people aren't buying into the hype like they did at the beginning of the year with Sam Hartman. He has struggled a little bit with those 2 losses, but those 2 losses are some good losses to some good teams. And I think to right the ship, get back into the ACC conversation, you got to win this one. So give me the Demon Deacons.
Yeah, this is a hard one to pick because neither of these teams played well at all last week. Wake Forest turned it over 8 times, and NC State needed a miracle comeback to beat lowly Virginia Tech. So, I'm just going with the home team here. Both of these teams are struggling right now, but the NC State defense, I think that'll be the difference in this one.
And that's going to be it for our video today. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below to be entered into our giveaway. But until next week's video, the Bench Buddies are out.